Hello, I'm Deacon Jeff, and it is my honor to be able to offer the reflection on this Friday, March 25th, on the solemnity of the Annunciation. Today is a very special day, and on this day, I'd like to share with you a story, a true story. The story starts out with Europe, the entire continent, being at war. Christendom was fragmented, the Holy Land was controlled by non Christians. Pirates raged on the seas, the Mediterranean, the Caspian, the Black Sea. The enemy controlled lands all around the Black Sea, Eastern, Southern Europe. He had made a foothold in Southeast Europe and was on the march. The Northern and Western European countries were bickering. They were looking for political, economic, and secular solutions to this attack. Most of them were advocating that they should stay neutral. The year was 1571. Suleiman the Magnificent ruled the Ottoman Empire and was intent on subjugating all of Europe to Muslim rule. He had amassed a fleet of a little less than 350 warships, manned with approximately 80,000 hardened, trained soldiers. Pope Pius V in Rome recognized the threat, and he began to try to cobble together a naval opposition to this amazing fleet, a holy league, as he called it. He wasn't having much success, though. Too many rivalries and infighting among the Christian nations. Finally, the King of Mexico, all the way from the New World, sent an image of Our Lady of Guadalupe to Don Juan, the brother of King Philip of Spain and the admiral of the Spanish Navy. And with that image, he directed Don Juan to turn to God through Our Lady and ask for the help of the Prince of Peace in this time of conflict. Well, Don Juan was very moved by that, and he got his brother, King Philip, to relent and ultimately agree to try to put together a force to oppose Suleiman the Magnificent. They didn't have much success, though. In addition to the Spanish fleet, they were able to only garner 2 allies. Most of Italy, the Kingdom of Venice at the time, and the small island nation of Malta. Of course, that wasn't such a small contribution, though, because Malta was manned by the highly trained and battle-hardened Knights of Malta at the time. They put together a combined fleet of only about 200 ships, many of them not even war vessels, but merchant vessels. They had about 28,000 fighters on those ships compared to the over 80,000 on the Muslim ships. They were outnumbered approximately 4-1. The Saracens sent spy vessels to check out this aligned fleet of Christendom, ships painted black so they would not be seen at night. They returned to Suleiman and said, "The Christians have no chance. We far outnumber them." They didn't know about the Knights of Malta. On October 7th, 1571, the battle was joined at Lepanto. Pope Pius V, realizing the huge advantage held by the Saracens, called all of Catholicism to pray together during the battle for the intercession of our Blessed Mother, to pray the rosary as the battle raged. And so they did all across Europe in cathedrals and churches and small chapels. And it is said that Pius V himself was given the gift of, while he fingered his rosary beads, of the vision of the battle taking place. And as the battle raged back and forth for many hours, finally, the admiral of the fleet of Venice was able to break through, ram the flagship of the Ottoman Empire, the flagship of the great Ali Pasha, take the Saracen admiral prisoner, take his life, and secure the victory for the Catholic fleet. And at that moment, it is said, hundreds of miles away, Pope Pius V jumped from his chair, ran to the window, threw it open, and shouted, "The Christian fleet is victorious." The Battle of Lepanto has been called the greatest naval battle in all of history. Had it not been won by the Christian fleet, it is very likely that we would all be speaking Arabic and praying to Allah today. The victory, given the overwhelming odds, has been called a Marian miracle. Our message for today's readings on this, the Annunciation of our Blessed Virgin Mary, echo the message of Pius V. Turn to God through Mary. In our first reading, we hear of King Ahaz, an evil king in Israel. Judah was under attack, and he, like the nations of Europe at the time of Lepanto, was looking for a political, an economic, a secular solution to make an alliance with an evil friend. And Isaiah the prophet turned to him and said, "No, don't do that. Turn to God." Ahaz declined to do so. He rather chose to rely upon himself, upon men. And Isaiah said, "Fine, God's going to give you a sign anyway. He will send a virgin with child who will be named Emmanuel, God with us. Look to the mother who bears a son for salvation." And indeed, Ahaz's wife bore a child shortly thereafter, Hezekiah, who became a great king in Israel and returned Judah to God. And the nation prospered. But there's a greater message there for us, a message of prophecy for all of salvation, for all of history. A deeper message, a prophecy for the world. A world that, since that hot time, has constantly been under attack by the forces of evil, and still remains so today. A world that continues to look for political, economic, secular solutions rather than turning to God. The gospel gives us a prophecy that reminds us to still turn to God through Mary in times of attack, to look to the mother who will bear a son for our salvation, a prophecy of a virgin who bears a child, Emmanuel, God for us. Often we hear people say, "I'll pray for you. It's the least I can do." No, it's not. It's one of the greatest things you can do. To pray to God through the intercession of our Blessed Mother. She has worked miracles for her intercessors in the past. At the wedding at Cana, at Lepanto, the greatest naval battle of history. And so, we all today have been called upon to do so again, to turn to God through the intercession of Mary in this time of conflict. Just as the Pope did in 1571, he has called us all today through his bishops, with the entire Catholic world, to turn to the intercession of Mary, to seek the help of the Prince of Peace, because it remains as true today as it did at the wedding at Cana, and it did when Mary received the Annunciation, as it did at the Battle of Lepanto. It remains true today still that all things are possible with God. God bless you all.